There's something deeply unsettling about the way Jim Carrey talks in interviews now. Look closely. He isn't funny anymore.
I don't exist. So, they're all characters.
He isn't loud. He isn't that chaotic force of energy the entire world remembers.
I'm the great and powerful Oz. How dare you come near me?
When you look into his eyes today, he just looks tired. And once people started noticing that change, they couldn't stop noticing it. Because during the 1990s, Jim Carrey wasn't just a comedian. He was Hollywood's ultimate machine. By making The Mask, Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber, he did something no actor had ever done before. He became the first star in history to get paid a staggering $20 million for a single movie. One after another, he became the face of happiness itself. People didn't just watch Jim Carrey movies, they escaped into them. For 2 hours, he could make millions of people forget their problems completely. But while the world was laughing, something darker was quietly happening behind the scenes. Because the strange thing about Jim Carrey is that the more successful he became, the more disconnected he started sounding from his own life. To understand why Jim Carrey slowly disappeared from Hollywood, you first have to understand what Hollywood turned him into. For most actors, fame arrives slowly, but Jim Carrey exploded into global superstardom almost overnight. His energy felt different from everyone else around him. Faster, louder, more unpredictable. His face moved like a cartoon character. His body language felt physically impossible sometimes. Audiences weren't just entertained by him, they became emotionally dependent on him. Jim Carrey became more than an actor. He became comfort, a symbol of joy, a person people watched when life felt heavy. But there's a dangerous psychological cost that comes with becoming the person responsible for everyone else's happiness. Because eventually, the world stops caring whether you're okay yourself. Behind the scenes, Jim Carrey was already carrying emotional weight most audiences never saw. Long before fame, his childhood was unstable. His family struggled financially, and at one point, he worked exhausting night shifts as a teenager helping support them. Comedy became more than talent for him. It became survival. And maybe that's why his performances always felt so explosive. Because underneath all the energy, there was pressure. The more successful Jim became, the stranger his relationship with fame started becoming. Fame gave him everything society tells people to chase: money, power, admiration, freedom. But once he finally reached that level, he started describing it like something empty. That's the part that disturbed people. Because celebrities usually spend their entire careers convincing the world that fame made them happier. Jim Carrey started doing the opposite. In interviews, he began talking about identity almost like it was fake. He famously said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." He described fame as an illusion, something that looked meaningful from the outside but felt hollow once you finally lived inside it. At first, people laughed it off. They thought Jim was joking. But slowly, the jokes stopped sounding like jokes. One of the most uncomfortable moments came during a red carpet interview where Jim suddenly started talking about meaninglessness in front of cameras. The interviewer looked confused, nervous. She kept smiling, expecting him to turn it into comedy. He didn't. Instead, Jim looked directly into the cameras and started talking like someone emotionally exhausted from the entire system around him. And suddenly, people realized they weren't watching funny Jim Carrey anymore. They were watching someone who sounded deeply disconnected from the identity the world created for him. And maybe that's because after decades of constantly performing happiness, Jim Carrey no longer knew how to separate himself from the character everyone expected him to be. That pressure became even darker when Jim openly admitted struggling with depression. Not temporary sadness, real emotional exhaustion. He described periods where happiness felt artificial, where being Jim Carrey for the public became psychologically draining instead of exciting. Think about how terrifying that actually is. The entire world knows your face. Millions of people associate you with joy. but privately, you feel disconnected from yourself. That kind of emotional split destroys people. And maybe that's why Jim Carrey slowly started disappearing from Hollywood itself. Fewer movies, fewer interviews, less celebrity visibility. While most stars become addicted to attention, Jim Carrey looked like someone trying to escape it. Instead of constantly chasing fame, he isolated himself more. He started painting obsessively, spending time away from Hollywood, talking about spirituality, ego, and emotional emptiness in ways that genuinely confused audiences. And strangely, the quieter he became, the more fascinating he became to people. Because once audiences saw this darker philosophical side of Jim Carrey, they realized something uncomfortable. Some of the funniest people alive are also carrying the deepest sadness. Even today, there's something strange about the way Jim speaks. Sometimes he smiles while talking about painful things. Sometimes he laughs while describing emotional emptiness. Sometimes he sounds like someone who understands fame too well and wishes he didn't. And maybe that's the real reason people still feel emotionally connected to him. Not because he made them laugh, but because underneath all the comedy, people eventually saw something human. Someone exhausted from performing happiness for the world every single day. So maybe the real question isn't, why did Jim Carrey disappear from Hollywood? Maybe the real question is, how long can someone keep making the entire world laugh before forgetting how to feel okay themselves? Because sometimes, the people who seem happiest on camera are the people fighting the darkest battles when it turns off. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the darker side of Hollywood, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We are already bringing more interesting dark secrets of your favorite actors, so stay tuned. And tell me in the comments, do you think Jim Carrey escaped Hollywood, or did Hollywood slowly break him first?